Hello, everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something I like to call degrees of creation. We're going to look at how a tiny, everyday grammar rule, something you probably use without even thinking about it, actually holds the key to unlocking a massive philosophical puzzle. So, let's dive right in. To kick things off, step into our linguistic classroom for a quick second. Think about how we naturally make everyday comparisons. Like, if I ask you, does saying the phrase, the highest mountain, suddenly invent new mountains out of thin air? No, right? Of course not. You instantly understand that I'm talking about one specific peak among a group that already exists. You don't conjure up a brand new mountain range in your head, you're just measuring the ones that are already sitting there. It's a subtle mental reflex for sure, but as we're going to see, this automatic way we process language, it's actually an incredibly powerful analytical tool. Okay, so let's look at a couple of super familiar examples. Think about the phrases, the fastest runner and the highest mountain. The absolutely crucial point here is that these phrases are pointing to a degree of excellence. But notice the boundary of that excellence. It exists entirely within a single category, right? So the fastest runner assumes there's one race with a specific group of runners, and we're just singling out the ultimate degree of speed among them. We aren't creating a multitude of new races or, whole new types of runners. Same thing with the highest mountain. It relies on one mountain range or one planet of mountains and just points to the ultimate degree of height. The language is literally designed to isolate a pinnacle within a single existing group, not to multiply the group itself. Now, what we're actually doing here relies on what linguists call a superlative. A superlative is just a grammatical structure that compares degrees within a category. It points to a degree among existing things rather than adding any net new subjects. And honestly, this is our foundational rule for this whole explainer. I really want you to anchor this academic concept in your mind. A superlative adds zero new subjects. It simply measures the degree of what's already there. Having this solid rule in our toolkit, well, that's exactly what equips us to tackle the much larger, way more complex philosophical puzzle that we are about to explore. All right, let's pivot from everyday grammar to a true micro to macro moment. The phrase, the best of creators. This is a phrase that has historically puzzled people. Commentators, philosophers, the whole shebang. It's found in classical texts, and on the surface, it seems to introduce a massive contradiction, especially in contexts that strictly argue for the existence of only one single creator. So how on earth do we reconcile the grammar of this phrase with that foundational belief? And that brings us to the core mystery of this explainer. Does this plural form actually imply multiple creators? Your brain sees that S at the end of the word, and our modern super quick reading habits make us immediately jump to a conclusion. But the Socratic question we have to ask ourselves here is, does the plural form automatically mean multiple subjects? In this case, multiple creators must exist? If you don't apply the grammatical rule we literally just learned, it is incredibly easy to fall into the trap of this false conclusion. You might think, well, it says creators plural, so there's got to be more than one. But hold on, remember our rule about the superlative? And this is where it gets really cool, because one great commentator applied our exact linguistic logic to this problem, explaining that the best of creators actually points to created diversity, meaning there is one creator, but each thing that is made most excellently. Do you see the brilliant synthesis here? The grammar rule proves that the superlative isn't multiplying the maker at all. Instead, it points to the infinite variety of what is created. The excellence, that superlative nature, is distributed across the vast diversity of the creation itself. It's a stunning shift in perspective, right? And it's brought about entirely by just understanding a grammatical structure. I actually want to slow down our pacing for a second to really emphasize this profound distinction. We aren't dealing with a plurality of creators. We are looking at a diversity of creation. The first is a false theological plurality based on a totally misread grammar rule. The second is an awe-inspiring reality. When you correctly read the superlative, the plural form stops being this confusing contradiction about who made the world, and instead, it becomes a beautiful reflection of the endless, majestic diversity of living species and elements in the universe. The plurality doesn't belong to the subject doing the creating, it completely belongs to the majestic variety of the objects that have been created. Let's break down the mechanics behind this little aha moment. The main takeaway here is that language carries deep, nuanced distinctions. Sometimes plurality marks the subject, the one doing the action. But, and this is crucial, plurality sometimes marks the object, the thing receiving the action or the results of the action. In our puzzle, the S was marking the objects, the diverse things being created excellently, not multiplying the subject, the creator. It is literally a perfect example of how syntax isn't just a bunch of arbitrary rules. It's the very architecture of meaning. To really cement this, let's walk through the logical progression. First, you analyze the grammatical structure. Don't just read the words, look at how they're built. Ask, is it a superlative? Next, identify if the plurality marks the subject or the object. Basically, figure out where the multiplicity actually belongs based on the context of the category. Ultimately, doing this prevents a false conclusion. A correct grammatical reading acts like a shield. It directly stops us from making massive philosophical or factual misunderstandings based on a superficial reading of literally a single letter. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. How many other grand misunderstandings out there could be solved by just reading a single word's structure correctly? It really makes you marvel at the hidden power of everyday syntax, doesn't it? We've seen today how one tiny rule about superlatives can untangle a major philosophical knot, transforming what looks like a contradiction into a celebration of diversity. It challenges us to look closer, to read more deliberately, and to really respect the incredible precision of language. I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity to look a little closer at the words you encountered today. Thank you so much for joining me.